All right, and welcome to Two Therapists and a Microphone. I am Dr. Harrison Davis.
And I'm Dr. Aisha Dickerson.
Two Therapists and a Microphone is a podcast show about mental health, relationships, and social issues that personally affect you. We broadcast live every Thursday evening at 7 o'clock p.m. on the Our Black Media Network.
Harrison and I are two licensed psychotherapists with decades of clinical experience, and we want to hear from you. We want to hear about situations and dilemmas that you're going through. So please visit our website at www.twotherapist.com and click on Ask Two Therapists at the top of the page.
Absolutely. We want to hear from you guys. As today, we're going to talk about a unique topic, one that Dr. Aisha brought up, and I'm eager to learn a lot about it. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Dr. Aisha, to introduce the topic because I know very little about it.
So let me tell you that it's been coming up a lot in some of my, I'll say friend circles and some colleague circles because so we're talking. Let me tell the audience what we're talking about. First of all, we're going to be talking a little bit about virtual reality. So my kids have this, and I brought it down here for people who aren't familiar with it. This Oculus thing,
Yeah.
right? And it seems like they're always on it. Well, not my oldest so much, but so my youngest, that's a bigger issue. Always on there, meeting new people, playing these games. Them and some people are their friends, some people are strangers. The other day, while my youngest was playing, I heard these kids on there cussing and saying all kind of crazy stuff. But other people are saying they're having similar issues with their kids. The Oculus is controlled by, I want to say, Meta. It was Facebook. You used to have to log in through a Facebook account, which was really weird because kids don't use Facebook. But now you make your own Meta account, and there are a lot of different games on there. Some of them, I do a little kickboxing game. There's this Gorilla Tag game, and then I like the stuff like meditation. But I'm worried more about the dangers of them, the kids, and sometimes even adults. We're talking to strangers, getting it seems just like another way to let people into your space,
It
but
does.
it's your virtual space. And I know before we've talked about social media and how for a lot of people social media is like real life. That those are their friends and everything. And I imagine that virtual reality is even more like these are your real friends and you're interacting with them more than you do with people in your real life. So I have heard my friend here, I hope I'm going to pronounce this. I ask this all the time, but Dr. Umwamaharo, did I do that right? Williams.
Close, very
Okay,
close.
I'm okay. So Dr. Williams, Dr.
Yes.
Olivia Williams, is an assistant professor of counselor education and college student affairs at the University of West Georgia. Dr. Williams' scholarship activities center around the areas of virtual simulation, excuse me, and counselor education and counseling, client outcome, counseling student development, and clinical supervision. Her primary research focus is on using virtual simulation to educate and train counseling students and counseling professionals. Dr. Williams is currently serving as co principal investigator on a 5 year, $2.2 million grant funded by the U.S. Rehabilitation Services Administration's Innovative Training Program. Well, that's a whole lot of words.
Hallelujah.
The project is designed to deliver training to vocational rehabilitation counselors who are hired to work with youth with disabilities in pre employment training services. The remote delivery includes online modules, podcasts, skills training, and using UWG Live Simulation Lab and Virtual Reality 360. So that tells me that you might know a little bit, if not a lot, about virtual reality and virtual simulation, and not just how it can be used in the counseling setting, but how it is used or misused in the personal setting.
So
So
first
I'm
tell
sorry.
us what is it? That's what I want to
Yeah, that's
know.
what I was about to say.
Okay.
Let's start with that
Sorry.
question. What is
Of
it?
course. So, when you talk about virtual simulation, it really encompasses all things dealing with virtual reality. So, all virtual reality is virtual simulation, but not all virtual simulation is virtual reality, if that kind of makes sense. So, when you're talking about virtual reality, this is anytime you're creating a simulated space on a computer. And by computer, I'm not saying that you have to sit in front of a desktop or a laptop, but like the Oculus goggles, that's technically a computer. Your phone is technically a computer. So anytime you are recreating reality to some capacity using a computer, you're virtually simulating reality. Now that's the virtual simulation, which it can encompass, again, a couple of different aspects to it. And so the different games that we play, so we talked about like the different games that your kids are playing, Oculus goggles. So some of that is virtual reality, in that it involves anytime you are using a 3D space, and there's going to be the capacity to engage with that particular objects in there. So I know with the Oculus goggles, there's some games where it feels like you're actually like using the remote controls and you can actually grab things, right? That's the virtual reality piece. That's when you're able to navigate 3D models. This virtual simulation, it can be where you're using like avatars, like things like platforms like Second Life. Now with the metaverse, you're going to be able to create like avatars to represent you. So you have an account, your account is associated with an avatar, and you're able to manipulate that avatar. And
So
that
you're sort of anonymous.
yeah, of course. Well, some people can choose. It depends on the platform. Some platforms have perimeters where you have to use an avatar that's similar to you, so your likeness. And there are some like Second Life where you can be anything. You can be a monkey, you can be a unicorn, you can be
I could be a white woman and have a little white privilege.
you can like a mystical creature. You can be of any race, any gender, any body shape, just anything you can think of. You can really modify that avatar to look like that.
So the example that's in my head, sorry, Aisha, to get in,
Okay.
is my daughter plays Roblox, or she used to, not so much anymore. I actually created an account so I could see what the hell's going on.
Right.
And I was hall monitor 123, by the way. But
I
in
love
the
the
game,
name.
she and her friends, they could create this avatar just like you just said. It can look like anything. It could be a unicorn, it can be an owl, and it was on the computer or her phone. And then she can maneuver around and meet people on there. But it sounds like with the goggles, it sort of puts you in the room as if you're actually there. Would it be a fair
Oh yeah.
description?
It feels I've played
Yes.
some games with her. It feels like you can jump off of cliffs, and
Really?
it's a lot, because in the sound part is coming
Yeah.
right to you. It's like you're right there.
Really?
Oh,
Yeah,
I
so
didn't do
that's the
that.
virtual reality part where you are immersed and you can engage you yourself with the environment. Where there are other aspects of virtual simulation, which again, where you're using the avatar to engage with the environment. So your avatar is the one that's maybe picking up that cup of tea, or shaking the person's hand, versus when you
Wow.
are in a using a thing like Oculus, on the Oculus goggles, because the Oculus goggles, Dr. Dickinson didn't show, but he has the goggles, but it also has two
right.
controllers that
Okay.
has sensors on them. And so when you are in that space, when you're putting your hand, literally your avatar is an extension of you. And so
Wow.
everything that you're doing, so to move your avatar, you're actually having to move your body to do these movements.
Wow.
Where something like Second Life, you're using your keyboard to maneuver, or if you're using like a touchless, like a iPad or a phone, you might be touching the screen, but it's not you physically moving to engage. And so this is where there's like a spectrum when you're talking about virtual reality space. And so it's very, 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 it's very cool. I find it exciting. That's why I'm in this
Yeah, it
area.
is.
I'm intrigued. I might
Well,
actually
'cause
go
the
buy one
headbands,
tomorrow.
they kind of vibrate and thump when you hit stuff.
Yeah.
It's
It's really
It's
cool. So if you're
it's
doing
really
like
cool.
boxing, you can
Mhm.
actually feel the vibration. Like Dr. Dickinson was talking about, like the rock. There's like a rock climb part. There's a lot of different things that you can do. There's like it's really cool. I encourage everybody to at least try it, especially if your kids already have the different, like the Oculus goggles. Like put them on and go in there and see what they see. It's pretty cool. It's not for everybody, but at least to see what your kids are engaging with, or even like loved ones that's part of your significant other, just to see what they're doing.
Mhm.
So one of the viewers said, yes, it is virtual visualization. And I think I hear that from you, where you can put on the goggles and it feels like you're in that environment with the goggles,
Exactly.
and you can see your movements. And what I'm also hearing, which is a little strange for me, you can not only interact with the environment, you can hold conversations with people. You can have,
Yes.
you can
Oh
interact with people.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's like we could do this in a virtual space.
Mhm.
Like if we wanted to get really fancy, like if we wanted, like with the way Facebook is transitioned to the metaverse, I can see eventually, somebody like a podcast like this being hosted like in the metaverse, where we can have our Oculus goggles, and instead of seeing ourselves on the screen, we will have our Oculus goggles, and we will actually be sitting in a chair, and I can see you to my right and I can see you to my left, and we can be in a cafe in the south of France enjoying some crumpets and tea.
And yeah, I see that happening because I think I've mentioned I've done meditation through the Oculus. I was like, well, let me try the meditation thing in the workout app, and it's great because I could go to like Egypt and meditate in the desert, or I can you see chairs, you see and hear water. It's really relaxing. It's great.
It's very
That
immersive.
part.
Yeah, so the part that basically you're getting is the immersive experience. It's going beyond what we've been doing for a long time with like the audio piece. Like usually how we meditate now, where we can create mood by using light. We can have the sound going, and you envision being at a waterfall. Now you can put on your Oculus goggles and be like, I want to be in Niagara Falls. And if there is, they've taken imagery of the space, you can select that, and you can and it would be an actual representation of the space. And it's real to life. It's very scale to life. And so it would feel like you're like right there at Niagara Falls with like the wind blowing, and you feel like the vibration of the water just hitting the rocks on the bottom. So it's very immersive.
So Aisha, can you choose your environment? So you can choose a beach.
Yes, I can choose whatever they have on there. I can choose the place.
And as you turn your head, the
Yep,
scene changes.
I can see
Hot damn, I'm going to buy one of those.
turn around and see some rocks over here and turn to the left and see some water here.
Because
and
the
be afraid to take a step because you might go over a cliff. It just feels like all of that is there.
Yeah, so they use a 360 camera to create those, like to capture. So like when you're talking about not like a fictional space, but an actual space, when they go out and they're taking like going to the beach and taking that video, they're going to use a 360 camera where they're going to loop around. So that way, when you're in there, you're able to turn and get that full experience as if you are at the beach. So it's really cool.
So when I see all of that, what I think about is how something like this is going to impact relationships in the future. Because we already know that one of the biggest issues with our marriages are inappropriate conversations on stuff like Facebook, people sliding in DMs, pictures being sent. People are already doing that. And so I imagine when you have these avatars, I mean, I know how I make my avatar look. She might be a little thick. She have a real thin waist. I don't know. And then the next day I might want to be somebody else. But you can be whoever you want to be in a place that's not actually your home, and then engage probably inappropriately with somebody that you don't know, that you never have to see in real life, as long as you don't give them your address and tell them where you work.
So let me make sure I got this right. So you in that environment, because I really like that meditation thing that you just talked about. I think I'm going to go buy it tomorrow. But someone can join you on that beach, is what you're saying?
Yes. Depending on which game you're
in
in and the permissions that you've given via the system, someone can join you. You can have friends, and they could just be your friends, or you can leave it open and random strangers, like the games I'm thinking about. Random strangers can come join the game, or it could just be the people you want to join the game.
Wow.
Exactly. So to me, I think the best example to give, it's like Facebook, right? So let's start with social media. You know how you create an account and then you dictate who can engage with you. And so as you're adding people to your list, some of us have like public accounts, some of us have private accounts. And so when you have private, there's a little bit more control about who can access certain content, who can engage with certain things that you're posting, versus when you have a public account where basically anything you post, anybody can see and can engage at any time. And there's also a difference between a regular personal space versus like a business page versus a group. And so depending what activity you're engaging in, some of the activities will be like group activities where there are already people there, so you're bound to just be around other people. Others can be like Dr. Dickinson mentioned, like where you can invite somebody to be part of an experience along with you. And this is somebody who is part of like kind of like your circle in that space.
Okay.
And that engagement can be whatever you want it to be. Simply put, so we can sit here and have a conversation. So the part where we're talking about like the inappropriate conversations that some people might engage in, like sliding to people's DMs and saying things, right? We're typing that, or maybe we're providing an audio clip or video or pictures. Okay. Now we can be in this virtual space together and engage, right? We're going beyond the typing and the pictures, because now even though we're not physically in the same space, virtually we're in the same space. So we talked about like the ability to have like a physical experience. So some of the games you can actually like, you're not touching the person, but the sensation of touch is there. It's enabled. So like basically like you can feel like high-fiving somebody. And my take on this is, as the metaverse is transitioning and they're getting more engagement and they want people to get immersed, I could see there being the capacity to actually like physically have like the physical sensation. So we have the Oculus goggles, we have the controller. I could see the next thing being like almost like a little bodysuit of some sort that you can put on, where now you have sensation, like the sensory aspects like on your person, where if somebody gives you a hug, you can feel like somebody's giving you a hug. And so right now there isn't that, at least along with the Oculus goggle, but you can be, again, if Dr. Dickinson was like, hey, let's go meditate together, where you could be on this beach meditating with somebody. And if you're meditating with them, if you want to engage in like an appropriate conversation, your spouses are not around to listen, you could do that. So it does open up, it extends some of the problematic things that we have been seeing between like in couple in romantic relationships. It definitely does open up those opportunities. Yeah.
So what are those inappropriate things that people are doing? So far, what I'm hearing, it sounds nice. I'm a little bit weirded out about meeting people in a virtual space. But what are those things what are the other things that are going on?
So if you think about going back to Second Life, and those viewers who might have even used like the Sims, right? Who had the Sims game or whatnot. Yeah, so Second Life kind of takes a step further. But as with the avatars, right? Like with the Second Life, you have like, again, an avatar that you're controlling with your keyboard and kind of moving them around. So with that space, like you can go to clubs, you can put on your outfits, and like you can go in a club and your avatar can actually be in the club dancing.
Wow.
And if you can simulate dancing, what else can you simulate? What else can your avatar simulate?
Sex.
Right? So exactly. So you could have like two avatars like get in the cut, and then you can start simulating very inappropriate behaviors between two avatars. So even though you're not in the same space, but you can essentially act out very sexual behaviors between two avatars if you choose.
And this is something where you're using using your keyboard and your mouse. And stuff. Second Life. Okay. But I mean, so even the name Second Life is like, I don't want to be in my own life right now. I'm going to escape and do things that I wouldn't do in my regular life.
Exactly.
Second Life.
And this is to me where you can take something that could be used for good, right? So sign me up. That could be used for good. So the first time I was introduced to Second Life, I was actually an undergrad at the University of Tennessee. And we had a computer lab, and the computer lab director was very into tech. and he started he downloaded Second Life on the computers, and we used to have the foreign language professors that would come and use our lab for students to practice like do different assignments. So we started actually having them engage with Second Life, where they would have like their headsets, and let's say they were like a French group, we could pull up Second Life, and they could actually be in a cafe in France while they're practicing French. And so to kind of
Wow.
add a little bit of fun to that experience. And so
Wow.
that's where I started with my experience with Second Life, just having a faculty trying to find an innovative way to engage students while they're learning foreign language. And then as the clinician, I have had couples come and people are very upset because maybe one of the spouses is heavy into gaming, and you find out that there are in some of these platforms and their avatars are engaging in things that the other person is not happy with. And so it has
Like
moved
sex.
into, yes, like simulating sex, simulating, again, just taking like the conversations, right, that you typically would have, like if somebody's sending you messages,
Hmm.
instead of like you're now using the avatars to engage in those conversations. And one person sees it as, this is not real.
Yeah.
This person is like across the country. We would never see each other, but it's the same thing we've talked about you all have mentioned, where there are issues where, again, you might never see the person, but the fact that you are engaging in this type of conversation and your spouse, your significant other is not okay with it, it's going to create a problem within your relationship.
Well, and you kept it a secret because you knew your spouse wasn't going to be okay with it.
So what the
So yeah,
impression that I'm getting is that this is taking porn to a different level, because you're actually engaging in the sexual. I mean, let's be adults
the
here.
simulation of
The
the sexual act.
stimulation of
Mhm.
sex with this stranger, but you're not
Mhm.
actually physically touching them. But I'm imagining some people are getting some type of sexual sensation out of it. So now I'm hearing that people who are in relationships, like married couples, somebody is actually engaging in some type of sexual relationship with a reality avatar. Would that be a fair statement?
Well, I would say
Well,
at a minimum, at least, an emotional, um, what do they
like
call
an
it?
emotional
Attachment?
affair. Yeah, yeah. So
Yes,
they're
there we
having
go,
like
an
an
emotional
emotional
affair.
affair.
If I'm sitting up here meditating with somebody else with our
Yeah.
Oculus goggles on instead of meditating with my spouse, like,
This is
Yeah. So I
new.
think, yeah. So it's similar to boundaries, right? We talk as clinicians, I think, with social media, the thing we started engaging our clients with is about having that added communication about, hey, what is your expectation around social media engagement? If you're with this person, are you okay with them liking somebody else's pictures, making comments,
Okay.
reacting with emojis? And so it's now like couples are going to start having to have a similar conversation when it comes to what is appropriate and acceptable within their relationship when it comes to like this virtual reality, virtual simulation space. Because some couples could be like, hey, I'm okay because you're not really dealing with the person. So whatever, somebody else can still see it as a violation of the
Hmm.
trust and just the relationship. And so I feel like the safest thing to do is having, again, an open dialogue. One, people need to understand that these are spaces and things that's happening, and just have conversations about it. If your person is heavy into gaming, or you yourself might be heavy into gaming, just being open to having these conversations and be like, hey, how are we going to navigate this? What's okay? What's not okay? So that way you don't open yourself up or leave yourself up for potential issues.
It
Because
sounds similar to, I'm sorry to cut you off,
oh no,
similar to phone sex on a it's not necessarily porn on a new level, it's phone sex
mm,
on a different level. As I'm thinking
yeah,
about a more appropriate analogy, and how two people get on the phone. I've had those couples come in and they caught somebody having phone sex with someone else, but now you get to do it and see them or
like
see some version.
OnlyFans is going to get OnlyFans. I'll probably get something on Oculus sometime soon. I imagine in the metaverse. I'm sure.
I can
So
see that. No,
Yeah.
I can, because it's like now you're in, like,
In the room with the
essentially it could
person.
look like you are in the room with the person. Yeah.
So
So
I
it's
could
an added
imagine,
piece to the experience.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I could imagine a spouse does not want his or her partner engaging in phone sex with a stranger. You're just talking,
Hmm.
and I guess satisfying yourself. I could imagine they don't want them to do that in a virtual reality space as well. But it sounds like some people are justifying some of the
Oh yeah.
behavior.
So I had
Hmm.
and I've shared this experience. It's been years back. So but there was definitely, you can tell that they were on two ends of the spectrum about what was acceptable and what was not. One person was like, I've never been in the same room with this person. It's just a game. And the other person was like, would you do this if I was in a room with you? You wouldn't. So therefore, you're cheating. And so that's where they were kind of really, they went back and forth, and we had to kind of, again, because they never had a conversation about this. This was never
Hmm.
something that they even ever thought to think
Right.
about. And so what ended up happening was really them navigating and negotiating, moving forward, what's acceptable, what's not, what is the perimeters. And we started back with like, okay, what's appropriate when it comes to texting, like communication by phone,
Hmm.
communication by social media, communication in a virtual work, space. Like, what does that look like for you? Literally had to go through those three levels of those three medians. So phone, social media, and then virtual simulations, virtual reality. And they had to come up with kind of rules of engagement in those three spaces.
So I want to talk about this show I saw, and it's kind of similar. It's called Upload, and then the show it's about some people who passed away, maybe, but that's not the important part. The important part is that when people wanted to interact with people in the other world, they would put on a whole suit, and it's kind of like
Mm.
Richard. Remember how we were saying that the hand things would vibrate? So this
Yeah,
whole suit had kind of like these things inside of it, different little
they're like
tubes and stuff.
sensories. There's
Right,
yeah.
exactly, exactly. So
Yeah.
that's what I imagine happening, a whole bodysuit that you could put on, and that you never actually have to have an intimate relationship with a person if you don't want to.
Well, and
That would be a lot.
a movie that did something similar was like Player One, I believe, and they had host suits as well, because essentially what the host suit would do, you would have sent like little sensors all over the suit. So now if somebody, you can engage, so like, imagine like doing a boxing game, right, with somebody else, and you can actually feel
Mhm.
all those blows like across, so that becomes even more immersive. There's a difference between having the sensor, the handles, the controllers, and you can feel like you're throwing a punch.
Wow.
Now if you have a full body suit, if I uppercut you on your side, if I
Mhm.
kick you, like, you will be able to feel that. Now that becomes even more immersive. So I can see companies moving in that direction, tech companies moving into that direction, because that's like literally the next level. We
Oh
got
yeah.
the visual, we got the audio, we already have some audio aspect with the hand controllers. Now we'll put you in a suit. It's a
It's
whole
going down.
thing.
Yep, it's going
It's
down.
going down in a whole nother way.
Right.
So, Dr. Williams, with some of the couples you've talked to where this was an issue, what were
Mhm.
what the individuals who engaged in this behavior, virtual reality, sort of having a virtual affair, either
Mhm.
sexual or emotional? What did they say they were getting out of it? This is. I'm still trying to wrap my brain around someone connecting with another person who
Yeah.
isn't actually there. But what are they getting out of it?
So, from the most part, what I've gathered, it's you start engaging with these individuals, and everybody that couples I've dealt with, they all seem like they were just initially just engaging with the game. So they were gamers, or just dealt with the virtual. Most of, actually, they were all gamers, and so they were going in with the share just purpose of playing, engaging with just other
People
people
with
within the
common interest.
community.
Hmm.
Exactly. And when I don't know if you're familiar with like multiplayer gaming, but people are usually like talking and engaging for
Mhm.
hours.
Hmm.
And so you start out, you might be focusing on the game and trying to maneuver this game and this and the other. But eventually you start talking like, hey, how was your day? Oh, you haven't logged on in, a couple of days. How are things going? And you start having conversations out beyond the game. You start making actual connections with people. You
Okay.
start then finding
Okay.
yourself emotionally
Okay.
invested in that because again, people who are like really into gaming, that's a whole community.
Mhm.
Because some of these games really do take a long time to maneuver and master, and you really kind of get immersed in it. So you can find yourself like, if you're spending, just think about, right, if you are spending a couple of hours, sometimes a day or over the course of the week, gaming with the same group of people, that's time, that's investment. And so you go from, again, talking about just the game to just like, oh, again, like something happens, somebody doesn't show up for a couple of days, a couple of weeks, people are checking in, and they're like, oh, you start sharing personal things that's happening. Now you're opening that door
Okay.
for that
Okay.
emotional connection. And next thing you know, like, Lola Bunny all of a sudden looks really attractive.
Right.
Because, like you have now this emotion, you're emotionally invested. And you go from like emotional investment, now you start having side conversation in a private chat. And now you find yourself, again, that whole like this is like you mentioned, like this is modern day phone sex. It's like it starts out maybe very innocent within a group, you're engaging, those private messaging start happening. Now we're going for a sunrise meditation at the beach, just the two of us. So that's how it can progress. It usually progresses very slowly,
I get it now.
just like anything else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was confused at first, but you explained it well. It's almost like replacing a classroom or an athletic team where you're engaging in behaviors with the same people and you see them physically, and then you develop
Mhm.
relationships with those people. Here, it's all
Exactly.
online and you don't have to leave your couch. You don't have to
Exactly.
leave your desk if you and you can still have the same type of connection
Right.
with another
Yeah.
Real
person. Okay.
relationships and real
Real
friendships.
relationships, and you already have a base interest, you have a vested interest. So if
Mhm.
it's through gaming or if you're just really interested in this type of tech, you already know, if you're here,
Yeah.
you love this type of thing, so we already have a baseline connection.
So you won't
And
fuss at me about playing games all day.
exactly, because you get it why this is fun. And
Right.
so why if it's sticking to romantic relationship, why your spouse is getting on you, like, why are you always doing this for hours on hours? This
Mm.
other person is excited to see you, is excited to engage with you. And so
And you're fulfilling a need.
they're fulfilling a need, they're validating that experience, you're having a shared experience that maybe both of your significant others are not invested in or even see value in. And so those are those things that really, if it all aligns, it can lead to those inappropriate conversations really quickly.
Yeah. So I've worked with some teenagers whose parents say they don't have friends, right?
Hmm.
And the kids are always like, I do have friends. I have my friend such and such in Ohio, and my
Virtual
friend,
friends.
right, my friend Tom and DC, and I in their mind, these are real friends. And I guess they are real friends, but
Yeah.
it can be, I think, disheartening when your kids aren't making friends face to face, but they have all these new friends online. So but I know we're getting a little close to our time, but I do want to ask you, for those of
We're
us
good.
who are parents, okay. Oh, see, I'm glad you keep up with that. For those of us who are parents, what should we be on the lookout for when it
Yeah.
comes to
What are the
virtual
dangers
reality?
for the kids? Because it
Yeah.
sounds like it's a new way for people to meet other
Right. A
people.
new way for them to abduct your kids and expose them to things you don't
Well,
want
there are
them to be
lots of
exposed to.
dangers out there.
Yeah, no, it is. So the first thing is, as a parent, as a caregiver, you need to be educated, right? One, don't assume, don't minimize, don't demonize, don't just come out just hating on whatever it is your child is doing. One, educate yourself and make sure you know what the game is about, what is happening, how they're
Mhm.
engaging. And most of the time, your child can that young person can actually educate you on that, where you can allow them to teach you something that you don't know, but also do additional research so you can understand the perimeters around that particular game. Is there age restriction? Do those platform require like actual ID verification? Some of them do, some don't. And so like you need to really dive in. And most of this, all these games have an actual website, so you can go and look at it and see what that process looks like. A lot of the games, especially those that are marketed towards minors, are in like they have multiple safety aspects to it, but it's important for you to know and not assume. So that would kind of let you know that they are vetting who's engaging, and they do monitor. If they don't have that, right, it's on you to make sure that you're talking to your kids and you are having an honest conversation, an open conversation about, yeah, this is a fun thing, but there's also some potential dangers, because you don't, just like social media, right? We learn about catfishing and all of these things, where who a person presents themselves as might not be who they are. And so not being quick to, provide, give your own personal information, and really, like, again, the basic internet safety aspects of it. But the thing that I always advise parents on is take a deep breath, one. And two, allow your kids the space to enjoy something that they like. And the thing that's going to be really helpful is to not go in full throttle, ready to just shut everything down. Just sit, have a conversation, be like, hey, what is this game about? Just go in with a sense of curiosity, and let them kind of pull you in, teach you, let you know about the game, what it's about, what do you like about this, what are you gaining from it, so you can have an idea of what's going on. Don't assume, don't minimize, don't dismiss. To me, that's always, because the moment your kid sees that you're invested, or you're at least curious, that makes them feel good. So they're going to be less likely to hide things from you. But when we go in and be like, oh, this is, why you always play this stupid game? Now, I'm not going to talk to you about this. I'm not going to talk to you. I'm going to keep things to myself. And those, like, actually having that mentality will cause your kids to become more secretive about what's going on. So if you come from a place of curiosity and asking them to educate you, that would be great. And always research on your own what the privacy and the just the different safety perimeters around that particular game or that platform is, so you know for yourself. And reinforce those conversations about internet safety, because this is nothing new. As far as people masking to be something that they're not. We've seen it with catfishing, where, we have a whole show that came out when it was like people are out here doing all kinds of things. Now with these platforms, people can actually do it easier, because you literally have the flexibility to do it, because it's built in the platform, where you can build your avatar to look like anything, anytime, real or imaginary. It's a lot of things. And so that would be my biggest advice to parents and caregivers.
That's good what you said. I didn't know it. I did the same thing you just suggested with my daughter in Roblox, as she would come and ask me questions about some of the other comments from the other players, who I assume were 8 and 9 years old, and they're pretending to be 8 and 9-year-olds, but they're going around cursing people out. And I'm like, wait a minute, that doesn't seem, like a little 8-year-old, and he has some personal agendas about some alternative lifestyles that really surprised me. And I said, are you sure these are 8-year-olds? I know your friends from your class, sometimes our whole class would be on Roblox playing, going to the park and driving cars and things. But you're right. Even with those safety settings for kids, people somehow get around it.
They always do. They always do. And I think it's on us to educate our kids to make sure that, like, hey, if somebody says something, like, I want you to have fun. Like, I bought this
Yep.
game for you to have fun and
Yep.
enjoy with your friends. At the same time, I want to make sure that you're safe. And this is no different than buying your child a basketball goal and putting outside the house. You don't want them running into the street behind the ball, right? You want to be like, hey, if it runs
point.
down the hill, I need you to stop,
Mhm.
look both ways before you start running down to get the ball. And so it's about just reinforcing that, like, hey, we want you to have fun. We want you to engage with your friends, with your peers. The moment you hear something that you're not comfortable with, and you can
Yep.
also like tell them too, like if somebody says something that makes you feel uncomfortable, if somebody's using language that we don't use in our home,
Yep.
come and talk to me, because the first thing I'm concerned about your safety. Two, I want you to have fun. I don't want you to be in a space where you're feeling uncomfortable, when you might be getting bullied, whatever it is. And so I think if we kind of approach things from that way, you're going to get your needs met as a parent, because you will know your child is safe, but it also gives them the thing that they're needing, which is to have fun and enjoy these games, which, again, I play these games a lot. They're fun, but because we're humans and we can be problematic, sometimes the wrong people get into these spaces and they, corrupt them for all the wrong reasons. And so,
Yeah, I can see them trying to do that.
It's the people. It's the other people out in the streets we can't trust.
exactly. That's a really good way to put it. It's not you that don't trust, it's the other people that might make their way into your space.
And what they're exposing to your child.
Exactly.
I had to explain some things to my daughter based on some words that she heard on Roblox.
Yeah.
Stuff you weren't ready to explain.
No, not to an 8-year-old.
Not to an 8-year-old, exactly.
And then when I get on there and I had my name, and at one point I changed it to Chloe's dad, and he used to call me poor. I was like, Chloe, why do you keep telling me I'm poor? What is this? And because I didn't have money in the account, and they would go to her and say, your dad is poor. Crazy stuff.
You gotta get your coins up. Like, listen, it's real. You gotta get your money up.
So what are some of the warning signs for adults who are in relationships with people who may be crossing the line within these virtual reality spaces? What should they look out for?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it would be no different than, again, the social media behaviors, or just anytime your significant other is, is pulling away. There's like you're not as engaged. If somebody is spending way more time than they typically do, check in, right? Like, hey, I've noticed, we've amped up. Maybe we added 3 to 4 hours to our playtime this week. What's going on? So asking basic questions. One of the telltale signs that a client mentioned is, and whenever they would come into the room, their partner would kind of like, like exit out of spaces, would kind of, be
act suspicious
whenever they came into the room. It's like, you can have, like, my husband, he plays games too. And if I come down here, like our gaming area is outside of my office. So if I come down and he's playing, he's going to keep playing. He's just going to keep doing what he's doing.
Yeah.
If I come downstairs and all of a sudden, like, he's shutting things down, minimizing windows, and like it's all quiet, be like, sir, what's going on? So really, anything that, it's no different than when we see individuals engaging inappropriately, like on social media. So if I'm sliding into somebody's DM, guess what I'm not doing? I'm probably very particular about where my phone is. I might be, putting my phone away, minimizing,
change the
maybe having a heart
passcode.
attack if you pick up my phone or trying to answer my phone.
Yeah.
So the behaviors are very similar. And so it's kind of, and I don't want to stereotype. I don't want people to be like, oh, my person is a gamer, so therefore they are engaging in this way. That is not the case. Not everybody who is into gaming or virtual reality or simulation is going to be engaging inappropriately in their relationships, right? Let's not start stereotyping people. That's not the case. It's just like, if you notice, just like any other way, if somebody was engaging inappropriately using other mediums, it's going to look very similar. With the gaming part, it really will be centered around the game. Is the person very particular, like about who's in the space. Are they shutting things down when you're walking in? And the first thing I would do is ask them question like, hey, what's going on? Why did you jump when I came into the space? And also have conversations with your spouse. If you're like, hey, I know you'll be, do this multiplayer gaming using the avatars or whatever, like in what ways are you engaging with people? And you might be the person that has to bridge a conversation. You could be like, hey, I was watching two therapists and a mic, and they were talking about, some of the things that people do in this virtual space. And we've never had this conversation. Maybe we should, right? Just to kind of make sure that we have proper boundaries and we have an understanding, and that we don't wait until something happens to then be reactive to that situation.
So let me ask a quick question. Would you recommend to an adult who's in a relationship and that person is suspecting their partner is engaging in some of that inappropriate relationship in a virtual reality space, would you suggest that they create their own account and go in anonymously to see what their partner's doing?
So we're doing the social media piece where we create a fake account to go.
I got all my clients do it. All of them. All of them.
Doesn't everyone have a ghost account?
No.
I know, we're creating a ghost account.
But I know people who do it.
So I feel like engaging in that way is only going to create more problems. If you have any suspicions, ask the questions. You could, it's always in the way in which you ask, not always what you ask. You'd be like, hey, I noticed you spend a lot of time in the game. What are some of the ways that you engage with people? Like, do you like, because I want to know, right? Just being curious, because the moment you probably won't even be able to finesse your way into doing something like that unless you are into gaming yourself, because all of a sudden they're going to be like, why do you want to be part of this space now? You've never played a game since you were 10. Now all of a sudden you are interested in gaming and creating an account for this game that I play. So I feel like the person will kind of catch on really quickly. So I feel like, unlike social media, where most of us are on social media, doing something like this with gaming or virtual reality, it will be a little bit more complicated because your person will find out that you're doing it, right?
Especially when you're not playing the game well. You're out there just
and you only have one
stuff.
gaming system, and some of this gaming system are expensive. Are you going to go spend a couple $100 to really spy on your spouse versus just asking the question? Because it's not like creating a free.
I do too.
Listen, I'm sure, right? But this is no different than the advice we would give to, a couple or somebody who's in a relationship where you feel like, oh, I feel like my significant other is engaged really on social media. We're not going to say, hey, go ahead and create a couple of ghost accounts and catch them. If you're suspicious, talk to them. If there's something there, you're going to find out. And so instead of creating this additional stressor for yourself, now you got to hide something from them to trying to catch them doing something wrong. Now you got two people potentially hiding things from each other. We're creating a whole new, that's a lot of stress.
It sounds like a lot of work,
stressful.
It's a lot. And it's a lot of things. That's a lot of stress. So my recommendation would be have an open and honest communication. Just have a conversation with your spouse. If you're that concerned and it's bothering you that much, it's important for you to express yourself to your significant other. And if they care and they genuinely care about you and your feelings, they're gonna sit down and listen and hear you. And if y'all can't get it to work, find you a good therapist and we will help. So
it's true. Well, I know we've talked about a lot of negative things concerning virtual reality and virtual simulation. Before we end, can you tell me any positive things people can?
I like the meditation piece, but go ahead.
Yes, the meditation. There's a lot of cool games you can play, like that's families interactive with kids, and it's friendly as far as like across the spectrum, across the lifespan. So you can find something for everybody. And so like games that your little ones can like, games that you can enjoy yourself. So you can make this a very cool family experience where everybody can be really involved, which again, that will allow for families to have another way to connect beyond the traditional games, board games that we grew up playing. And now you got a virtual space you can use. Also, obviously, like those who are in academia, there's and teachers and instructors, there's ways to incorporate a lot of these different games and platforms into education to get kids excited to be creative, and instructing and teaching like very basic things. Like I've seen a couple of colleagues who've used like the virtual simulation lab like we use, like to teach basic communication skills, like going in and practicing how to engage with somebody if you're having a disagreement. I've seen Career Center use it to teach young adults like interviewing skills and
Nice.
kind of like this professional. So it's a lot of great things that can be used. You got like medical schools using a lot of this different tech to like really train their medical students before they start interacting with real patients. And so where it's kind of like we got a virtual simulation, then we got the cadavers, and now we got the people. So now you got to add a layer of protection where before they can actually start engaging with people, they're having this advanced tech that they can use to practice their skills. So as far as like skill building is really cool. And when you're talking about just being innovative and just having fun, I feel like a lot of us as we get older, we forget to have fun. So you can use
Not
this
me.
like, oh, I said some of us, not all of us. So you got different, like Dr. Dickinson was talking about the meditation. Now there's a couple of things that I've noticed. Museums have started doing some virtual reality tours. So you could do like, if
I did that on the Oculus.
Yeah, like the Louvre, you could go like, I've never been to Paris, but I want to go to the Louvre. You can do that. And that will be like free of cost to you to kind of walk through the Louvre, or different, I know different people do different like exhibits for like the holidays. I mean, it's so many different things that you could do. That's really cool. So it can be an educational tool. It can be a tool for just to add to your self-care, to kind of spice it up a little bit. And ultimately it's fun. It's the tech. You can't beat the technology. It's really, really cool. So those of us who are a little bit older, who are sometimes slow to warm up to technology, you can use this as an opportunity for your kids to teach you, to put you on game and to teach you something that they know. And I feel like that's always really cool. For it just creates a really healthy and awesome way for you to be with your kids, where they can get an opportunity to teach you something new. So like those of you who have kids who are playing Roblox, you may not even know what Roblox is about, but let them join them. Let them teach you how to make money so you won't be poor.
And people won't criticize you. So Dr. Williams, thank you for coming on and sharing with us your thoughts and ideas about virtual reality. I've learned a lot about it, and I think I'm going to go get that Oculus thing tomorrow.
Just save it for Christmas and give it to your baby for Christmas.
No, that's gonna be mine. What you talking about?
That's why we have two for the same reason. I like it so much. I was like, I'll get my own.
So Dr. Williams, quickly tell us, how can the audience contact you if they want to continue this conversation with you?
Of course, you can reach me through my Instagram page, which is Dr.OUW, and my link tree is in there in the bio, so you can like anyway you can. That would be the best way to get in touch with me if you're interested in anything dealing with virtual reality, virtual simulation. I love engaging. So whether you are just a parent wanting to get more resources, a counselor who's trying to figure out a way to incorporate this in your practice, if you want to do research around this, I'm open to all of it. So reach out if you're interested.
All right. Thank you so much. Well, this has been really good. Any final words from you, Dr. Aisha?
No, just take care of yourselves. Make sure that you're being safe in your virtual spaces. But if you have virtual spaces, figure out how to use those, how to be your best self.
So I'm glad I learned about the positives and some potential negatives that are out there, and I'm really intrigued. I want to sit on a Caribbean beach and do some meditation.
It's
I actually
great.
want to do that right now. Oh,
Hey, that
love
would
it.
be great. And if you are open to, we should have a follow-up conversation once the metaverse rolls out, and
Look,
we're
when the
kind of seeing
metaverse,
what this is gonna.
Mhm.
It's gonna be something else. Yeah.
When is it
Okay.
supposed to roll out? Do you know?
Well, right now there are people. Actually, you can create an account now.
Okay.
But just like you know how Facebook progressively changed certain aspects of
Mhm.
itself. I feel like it's going to start out as an option and then it's going to become mandatory.
Okay.
And
Gotcha.
so
Right.
I don't know how long they're going to keep the regular Facebook up, but I feel like they're going to phase it out slowly. And it might be, I don't know what that timeline is going to look
Well,
like.
we're
but-
going to look out for it. So thank you, Dr. Williams, for coming on board and talking to us about this fascinating topic. You guys have been watching Two Therapists and a Microphone. I am Dr. Harrison Davis.
And I'm Dr. Aisha Dickerson.
Make sure you tune in next week at 7 o'clock on the Our Black Media Network. We will see you then.
I like that.